Imagine you've been starving, not for a few hours, not since breakfast, for 5 long days. The snow hasn't stopped falling. Your last meal was so long ago, you've almost forgotten what feeling full was like. Your stomach twists with every step. Every breath burns your lungs. Every movement costs precious energy. Then you hear it, a low growl, a wolf, thin, hungry, just like you. Normally, you would run. But today, neither of you has the strength. The wolf attacks. Somehow, against impossible odds, you survive. The animal lies motionless in the snow. Nearly 40 kilograms of fresh meat, enough to keep your family alive, or so it seems. Because here's the strange part. Throughout history, humans have eaten cows, deer, sheep, goats, rabbits, fish, even insects. But predators, lions, wolves, foxes, eagles, they almost never became regular food. Why? Was their meat poisonous? Did it taste terrible? Were ancient people simply afraid? Or is there a much deeper reason hidden inside nature itself? Because the truth isn't just about predators, it's about the invisible rules that shaped civilization long before anyone understood science. And once you see those rules, you'll never look at your dinner plate the same way again. Most people assume the answer is simple. Predators are dangerous. End of story. But that explanation falls apart almost immediately. Ancient humans hunted mammoths, animals weighing more than 6 tons. They charged at giant bison with wooden spears. They confronted cave bears, even cave lions. Danger alone never stopped humans. If something was worth eating, our ancestors usually found a way. So why weren't wolves on the menu? Here's where the story becomes surprising. Ancient humans did eat predators. Sometimes, archaeologists have found butcher marks on bear bones. Historical records describe people eating wolves during famines. In the Arctic, some communities hunted seals, polar bears, and other carnivores when survival demanded it. Even today, people in different parts of the world still eat crocodiles, sharks, snakes, and occasionally bears. So predator meat isn't forbidden. It isn't magically toxic. You can eat it. The real mystery isn't why can't humans eat predators? It's why did almost every civilization choose not to? Why did billions of people build farms, raise cattle, breed sheep, domesticate chickens, but never create wolf farms, never lion ranches, never tiger pastures? That decision changed human history, and it began with a rule that governs every living thing on Earth. Imagine a single blade of grass. The sun pours energy into it. A rabbit eats the grass. Then, a fox eats the rabbit. Finally, a wolf kills the fox. Seems simple, but something invisible happens at every step. Almost all of the energy disappears. Scientists call this the 10% rule. Roughly 90% of the energy is lost every time you move up the food chain. The rabbit doesn't turn every blade of grass into rabbit meat. Most of that energy is burned, running, breathing, keeping warm, staying alive. Then the fox loses most of the rabbit's energy. Then the wolf loses most of the fox's. By the time you reach the top predator, only a tiny fraction of the original energy remains. Imagine trying to fill a swimming pool, but every bucket you pour in loses 90% of its water before it arrives. That's the food chain. Predators are made from incredibly expensive calories. Every wolf represents hundreds, sometimes thousands, of plants that were eaten somewhere below. Every lion is built from countless zebras. Every eagle from generations of smaller animals. They're biological luxury items, which means something extraordinary. If you hunt one deer, you get meat. If you hunt the wolf, you're really eating all the deer, the grass, and the sunlight that came before it. Ancient humans didn't know the mathematics, but they understood the outcome. Predators were never plentiful. They couldn't be. Nature simply doesn't make many of them. Go to the African savanna today. You'll find thousands of antelope, hundreds of zebras, but only a handful of lions. That's not an accident. It's physics, and physics has always been a terrible business partner. Then imagine you're an Ice Age hunter. You've walked for hours. Your family is hungry. Ahead of you, you see 2 animals, a deer and a wolf. Which one gives your family the best chance of surviving? The answer seems obvious. But not for the reason most people think, because this decision wasn't just about food, it was about risk, and ancient humans became masters of calculating risk, even if they never realized they were doing it. Imagine standing in an Ice Age valley. To your left, a herd of reindeer. To your right, a lone wolf. Both are made of meat. Both could feed your family. But only one of them is actually worth chasing. Because ancient humans weren't just hunters, they were economists. Every hunt was an investment. Every step burned calories. Every thrown spear carried risk. Every injury could become a death sentence. And predators were among the worst investments nature could offer. Think about what a deer does when it sees danger. It runs. That's its strategy. Escape. Now think about a wolf, or a leopard, or a lion. They don't simply run, they fight. Because predators spend their entire lives killing other animals. They know exactly where to bite, where to claw, how to dodge an attack, how to wait for the perfect moment. To hunt a predator meant hunting an expert hunter. Imagine surviving weeks of starvation, only to receive one deep bite to your arm. Today, a trip to the hospital. 20,000 years ago, that same wound could become infected. Days later, fever, then weakness, then death. Long before antibiotics, even a small cut could be fatal. Suddenly, that wolf doesn't look like dinner anymore. It looks like a gamble. Ancient humans understood something we still understand today. The safest hunt is usually the one that fights back the least. That's one reason humans spent thousands of years mastering the hunt of grazing animals. They moved in herds. They could be tracked. Their behavior was predictable. Most importantly, they provided far more meat with far less danger. Predators offered the exact opposite. More risk, less reward. And that was only the beginning. Because even if you killed the wolf, another problem was waiting inside its body. Imagine slicing open fresh predator meat. To your eyes, it looks perfectly normal, red, warm, edible. But hidden inside, an entire invisible world is alive. Tiny parasites, microscopic bacteria, eggs, larvae, creatures so small, ancient humans had no way of seeing them, yet they learned to fear them anyway. Not because they understood germs, but because they remembered what happened afterward. Someone eats the meat. Days later, they become violently sick. Their muscles ache, their stomach twists, their fever rises. No one knows why. No one can explain it. But one lesson becomes impossible to ignore. Some animals make people sick, more often than others. Today, we know many predators carry parasites simply because they eat other animals. Every prey animal they consume can pass along its own parasites. Those parasites accumulate, generation after generation. One infected rabbit, then one infected fox, then one infected wolf. Every meal becomes another opportunity for disease to climb higher. One of the most infamous examples is trichinella, a microscopic roundworm. It hides inside muscle tissue. If infected meat isn't cooked thoroughly, the larvae wake up inside the next animal that eats it, including humans. First, stomach pain, then fever, then swelling. Eventually, the worms travel through the bloodstream, burying themselves inside muscles throughout the body. Before modern medicine, serious infections could be devastating. Ancient humans didn't know the parasite's name. They didn't need to. Experience was enough. If certain meats repeatedly caused suffering, those meats slowly disappeared from everyday diets. Over hundreds, then thousands of years, observation became instinct, and instinct became tradition. But parasites weren't the only hidden danger. There was another invisible process. One so strange that scientists didn't fully understand it until the 20th century, yet it had been shaping food chains for hundreds of millions of years. Imagine dropping one tiny drop of ink into a glass of water, almost invisible. Now pour that water into another glass, then another, then another. Each time, the stain becomes more concentrated. Something remarkably similar happens inside nature. Scientists call it biomagnification. Many toxic substances don't leave an animal's body very easily. Instead, they build up. Little by little, every fish eats smaller fish. Every seal eats hundreds of fish. Every polar bear eats countless seals. Each step concentrates more toxins, until the predator at the very top contains the highest levels of all. Today, scientists regularly measure high levels of mercury in large predatory fish, sharks, swordfish. Certain species of tuna, the same pattern appears across countless ecosystems. Even birds of prey, like eagles, can accumulate dangerous chemical levels over time. Ironically, being the best hunter in nature also means carrying the greatest biological burden. Ancient humans couldn't measure mercury. They couldn't detect heavy metals, but they didn't have to. Nature constantly rewarded people who chose safer food sources. Those lessons spread not through books, but through survival. And there was one animal whose liver became so dangerous that eating it could actually kill a healthy adult. Not because it was poisonous, but because it contained far too much of something humans normally need to survive: vitamin A. That story is one of the strangest survival lessons ever discovered. But perhaps the strangest danger hiding inside predator meat wasn't a parasite or a bacterium, it was a vitamin. That sounds impossible. After all, vitamins are supposed to keep you healthy, not kill you. Yet one of the deadliest meals a person can eat in the Arctic is the liver of a polar bear. It contains enormous amounts of vitamin A, far more than the human body can safely handle. Eat enough of it, and the consequences can be severe: headaches, vomiting, blurred vision, skin damage, in extreme cases, organ failure, even death. To be clear, this isn't true of all predator meat. It's a rare and specific example, but it reveals something important. Animals at the very top of the food chain, you can accumulate unusual biological compounds in extraordinary amounts. Nature doesn't always make the safest meal, the biggest one. Sometimes the most dangerous food looks perfectly normal, and over thousands of generations, our ancestors slowly learned those lessons. Not through laboratories, not through chemistry, but through survival. One bad meal, one sick hunter, one family that never returned. That knowledge stayed alive, passed from one generation to the next. Long before humans understood why, they already knew what worked. Then there was another problem, one you could notice. The moment you took your first bite, predator meat often doesn't taste like the animals we're used to eating today. Imagine comparing beef to wolf meat, or venison to lion. The difference isn't just psychological. Predators spend their lives running, jumping, fighting, chasing. Their muscles work constantly. That changes the meat itself. The muscle fibers become denser, tougher, leaner, harder to chew. Many predators also contain much higher amounts of a protein called myoglobin. It's the molecule that stores oxygen inside muscle. Animals that rely on explosive bursts of speed need plenty of it. The result is darker meat, a stronger smell, and what many people describe as a much more intense, gamey flavor. Modern chefs who've prepared animals like wolf or bear often describe the meat as rich, but also unusually tough, sometimes oily, sometimes overpowering. It's edible, but rarely enjoyable compared to herbivores raised for food. Ancient humans didn't need taste tests to compare every species. If one animal provided softer meat, more fat, and less danger, that animal naturally became the better choice. Nature was quietly teaching economics through appetite. Now imagine trying to feed an entire village, not one person, not one family, hundreds of people. You have two choices: raise deer or raise wolves. At first, they both seem like livestock, until you actually try. The deer eat grass, leaves, plants that humans can't digest. The wolves need meat, which means before you can feed one wolf, you first have to raise several herbivores just to feed it. You're feeding food to your food, every day, every year, generation after generation. It's one of the least efficient systems imaginable. Scientists estimate that only a small fraction of energy passes from one level of the food chain to the next. Everything else disappears, lost as heat, movement, breathing, life itself. That's why civilizations across the world made remarkably similar decisions. They domesticated cattle, goats, sheep, chickens, animals that transformed sunlight through plants into food. Nobody built giant wolf ranches. Nobody created lion farms. Not because it was impossible, because it made almost no sense. Imagine feeding 10 cows just to raise one tiger, then eating the tiger. Ancient humans may never have calculated the mathematics, but they certainly experienced the results. Of course, there were exceptions. History is full of them. In the Arctic, people hunted polar bears. Along tropical rivers, communities hunted crocodiles. Sharks have been eaten in coastal cultures for centuries. Snakes, monitor lizards, even wolves during periods of famine. Predator meat has never been completely absent from the human story. But notice something. Almost every example appears under special circumstances, extreme environments. Limited food, cultural traditions, or desperate survival. Very few civilizations built their entire food supply around predators. Because whenever humans had a choice, they almost always chose herbivores instead. Again and again and again, across continents that never communicated with one another. Different languages, different religions, different climates, yet they all arrived at nearly the same conclusion. Some animals were simply better investments than others. That isn't coincidence. It's evolution solving the same problem over and over again. Then something remarkable happened. These practical survival decisions slowly transformed into culture. Children learned what their parents hunted. Communities repeated the same habits for centuries. Eventually, those habits became traditions. Traditions became taboos, and taboos became identity. People no longer avoided predators because they calculated calories. They avoided them because that's just not something we eat. The original reason slowly disappeared, but the behavior remained. Even today, most people would happily eat a steak, yet hesitate if someone offered them a perfectly cooked wolf. Not because they know the science, but because thousands of years of human history quietly shaped our instincts. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's forgotten past, subscribe for more stories about ancient humans, evolution, and the hidden discoveries that quietly shaped the modern world. Because the greatest moments in human history aren't always the battles we remember. Sometimes they're the everyday choices that changed our future forever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.